And sometimes I'm not too sure that policies should be contested on the pages of newspapers and then blown out of proportion.
Are you saying that there were no consultation, there was no stakeholders' input before the central bank?
I'm not in a position. I'm not in a position to know.
See, or is it going to? Is the central bank taking its autonomous status in this point?
Let's take a look at it this way. Even when you have engaged stakeholders, sometimes you may not even need to. Whether you do or you don't, policies might not every now and then, be favorable to an operator. And if there are reasons, very cogent reasons to engage, then you seek audience, and then stakeholders can engage the central bank. I mean, from time to time, don't forget that, for instance, my association, I mean, we from time to time, the central bank doors are quite open, even when there are policies and we believe we have some ideas or initiatives or suggestions. Of course, we engage them. At the end of the day, they take a look at our own side, we take a look at their own side, and then we're able to resolve issues from time to time. What I'm saying is that it is not in the best interest of the economy, when guidelines by an operator, an apex regulator, a central bank, and it goes out, and then we begin on the pages of newspapers to say, oh, we are protesting against this, we are contesting this, and all of those. I mean, obviously, there are foreign investors who do come into the economy, and what do they dwell on information. So what I'm saying is that there could be better ways of managing, such information, a way of engagement. That's what I'm saying. So the BDCs, for instance, they have an association. They could as well, seek audience with central bank, and then at the end of the day, agree. They might disagree to agree on certain issues. And I'm sure, we have a listening central bank, unlike in the olden days. But now, obviously, from time to time, they open their doors for engagement.
You talked about structure a while ago, about that the structure of the BDCs is not the way it ought to be. And I just want to read out some of the reasons the central bank is modifying the guidelines for the BDC operations. Is a majority of the BDCs could not be located, despite the fact that I have a list of at least some numbers in some locations, some BDC operations in some locations. So some of them could not be located. Majority had no accounting records. Yes. Some of those BDCs, they actually relocated without approval, maybe from the central bank. And also, there's no sales document. So when you look at these reasons from the central bank, in terms of why it modified the operation, how do you think this has affected the operation of BDCs in general?
No, obviously, that's why I said, for me, the structure is neither here nor there. And this is, this guideline, for me, it's an attempt to actually put up a kind of structure, around BDCs. Don't forget that the central bank supervises and monitors. And in terms of number, how effective could monitoring and supervision be when you have huge number of BDCs that virtually have no fixed addresses? Then secondly, these BDCs are supposed to be reporting on a periodic basis. So these reports, how frequently are they rendered? Even when you want to take a look at the reports that you have vis-a-vis the operations of the BDCs from time to time, how effective could you be in terms of resource deployment, to achieving that? So for me, if you say the central bank should supervise and then regulate, then obviously it must determine how it could achieve that, such that it could be effective in its surveillance.
Some BDCs, or rather some people, were said to own more than one BDC. So you have someone having to own maybe 2, 3, 4 BDCs. How do you think that person will be able to follow the guideline and abide by the rules guiding the operations?
Well, I'm not too sure BDCs should be. You can have. Ownership is one thing. Running the BDCs is another. And so when we talk about structure, therefore, all of this center around you require people, who will possibly run the BDCs. In terms of running the BDCs, and don't forget, part of the things you said was that there are the sales, without records. You have BDCs selling the foreign exchange without records. But don't forget that these BDCs approach the central bank and purchase FX from the central bank, and then with a view to selling to those who are in need. So meanwhile, we have challenges with the foreign exchange market itself, and then our reserves, as well as how the capacity to even generate the FX. So are we saying that there shouldn't be any control whatsoever? So if you don't have a concrete structure, that will help in terms of monitoring activities and reporting activities, then it will be quite out of place.
Now, can you say that the central bank is having a challenge in funding the FX market?
I'm not too sure.
The demand weighing.
There hadn't been challenge in funding. However, what do I do with the fund? I think whoever the buyer does with the funding is important, very important to central, and important to you and I, because it's from our common resources.
When we talk about the records of BDC operations, because I know that since the introduction of the retail Dutch auction system, which means that you have to present a documentation of who you're going to sell these currencies to, isn't that working fine with the central bank at this point? Don't they have the proper records of how?
We're not talking of the retail RDAS now.
Because these BDCs go to buy this dollars or whatever whether euro or whatever currencies. Now, isn't that record also playing a part in terms of having to regulate how much is being sold to them, to the BDCs? Because one of the things that the central bank was saying that they don't have records of how much or what this BDCs are doing.
No, let's get something very clear. It's not, the banks are responsible for the RDAS activities. I mean, they have responsibility, when you buy your foreign exchange, how it is utilized is important. You report. However, what the central bank is saying, what goes to the BDCs, it is difficult. I mean, in terms of number, even if you take a look at central bank resources in terms of manpower deployment, so how many places do you want to deploy people to almost at the same time to inspect the books and then come back with reports? More so that most of these BDCs have no structure. We've talked about that. They hardly report even their activities. And so how do you want to have a kind of control, over what you are supposed to superintend on? And so one of the rationale behind this is to say, look, let's streamline. If we're able to streamline the BDCs, then we will be in a better position to have a picture of what goes on there. I think that is one of those things that must have informed the central bank coming up with the guideline. Then secondly, the issue of capitalization. It is a minimum capital is required to to carry out one function or the other in terms of setting up a business. Mine is not to say whether whether the capital is sufficient or not sufficient, but the reality of there's a relationship between the activities you involve yourself in and the level of capitalization that is required. They must be commensurate.
Okay. Well, thank you, Wale. Well, I'd like you to hold the thought for us, and I hope that we can get back to you. We're going on a break. Thank you. Wale Abe is the Executive Secretary of the Financial Markets Dealers Association, and we have been talking about the new guideline of the Central Bank for BDC operation in Nigeria, the implication of the Forex, the implication of this guideline on the foreign exchange market. We'll go on a break, but just to let you know that any moment from now, we will be joining the Energy, Environment and Investment Forum that is taking place in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. So we expect to join a live feed going on in that part of the country. We'll be right back.